Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Meena and this is my channel Books with Meena. Welcome if you're new here and welcome back if you have seen any of my other videos. And today I'm going to be reviewing Redeeming Love, both the book and the movie. So first, let's talk about the premise of this book and the movie. Redeeming Love is a historical fiction Christian romance, and this was published back in 1997, and I came to know about this book or movie because I watched the trailer of the movie first, and I was really intrigued to get to know the story and the characters. So I decided I'm going to first read the book, and I did know about this book before. It is quite popular in the romance community and it has a really high rating on Goodreads, but going into it I was a little apprehensive because it's Christian fiction and I don't really read that, and some of my views and it's just something that I'm not into and something that I'm not even interested in reading it. But since I was interested in the story, like the plot of the story, I was like, sure, I'll give it a try. And this story is about Angel, who is a prostitute. She was sold into prostitution at a very young age. And now I think in the book she's like 18 to 20 years old when Hosea, who's like just your average farmer, he sees her walking on the street and immediately falls in love with her and thinks that it's kind of like God's message to him that he should marry this woman, and it's their love story basically. This is set in the gold rush era in San Francisco or California in USA. So the setting and the time period of this historical fiction is kind of different because I feel like most historical romances are set in Regency era England or Victorian era England, but this one is definitely about the working class and it is taking place in USA, and it is surrounding the gold rush era. So if you're someone who doesn't really read Christian fiction and doesn't really know much about the biblical stories and texts, I feel like this is still a very approachable story because it is definitely a retelling of one of the biblical stories about Hosea and Angel, and it is obviously set in a different time period with like different context and everything, and the original text, which is present in the Bible, I'm assuming, is definitely referenced in the book. But even though this book does have like a strong theme of like finding love through God and loving yourself because God loves you, and forgiving yourself, all of that stuff, all of these themes are present throughout the book. I don't think that it is going to be difficult for somebody to read this book who doesn't really have a lot of knowledge on like Christianity or Bible, or is not even interested in reading about finding faith. So let's start with the book review. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, which I'm very surprised with because, like I said, I was apprehensive going into this book because I don't read Christian fiction, and I was a little, let's just say, I had some preconceived notions about what this book was going to be, because not only does it fall under a certain category of books, but it was also written back in like 1997, and a lot of historical romances and just books in general written like more than 20 years ago tend to have like some kind of themes, and the tone of them, it has like underlying maybe misogyny or racism, those kind of things. And I cannot say for sure whether this book is if it's like the author or the book that is like being misogynistic or racist, because there are definitely instances in this book, like 1 or 2 throwaway sentences where I feel like I doubt like, is it the author who has these beliefs, or is it just she's trying to represent the characters who are growing up and living in a certain era of time. And this book is no way perfect. Even though I did give it 4 out of 5 stars, I definitely enjoyed reading the book. But I will say, it has its flaws. It has things that I did not like about it. But overall, I came away with the feeling of like, really liking this book. It felt like a warm hug. It felt very, I want to say, comforting. So I will be listing 3 positives and 3 negatives of this book, so you can decide whether if you want to, read the book or, watch the movie, any of those 2 things. So starting with the positives, I think the first positive I will say is Angel, the main character herself. And she is just so complex and layered. She has been through so much in life. She, as a little kid, she has suffered a lot. And I cannot speak for like the representation of like a sex worker in this book, especially in this time period, because I don't think any of us have actually lived in the time period, obviously. But I still do think that maybe this book might fall into some stereotypes or tropes, featuring these kind of characters. But overall, I did find Angel to be a really complex, layered, well-written, well-thought-out character. She is, throughout the book, she's really like learning to love herself and forgive herself for things that weren't even her mistakes in the first place. But she has like built these walls around herself, and throughout the book she is slowly bringing them down. Even the character interactions, whether it be the main romance between Hosea and Angel, whether it be Paul and Angel, who have like very antagonistic relationship with each other. There are like different friendships and relationships and familial dynamics even, where I felt like none of them were perfect, and none of a lot of them were hard to read about because of the way people treat Angel. But I still feel like they were written where they felt fleshed out, they felt real, they felt like, yes, this, people could have said this kind of thing, or this is their reaction. It felt authentic, basically, is what I'm trying to say. The second positive of this book would be its writing style. I think that the writing was very fluid, and it felt graceful. It's not exactly like over the top and gorgeous, but it is definitely the kind of writing which pulls you in and wants you to, makes you keep wanting to read more from this book. And my third positive would be a more like specific kind of thing that is in the book, and that is just about the character growth of like almost all the characters, including Angel, Hosea, everyone. Their journey is not easy, because at the beginning of the book, Hosea just sees Angel as somebody to be saved and somebody that he has to love and make his wife. But throughout the book, he comes to the realization that Angel has had a very separate life from him so far, and her life hasn't been easy. And he tries to understand, but at the same time he has always have like the right reaction. Not there is like supposed to be a right reaction to like every situation, but there are definitely times that he struggles to understand her and struggles to support her, including not only Hosea, but there are other characters. And there are these small moments in this book that really pull you in, and you're very emotionally invested in them. And like I said, with all like it's well written writing style wise, the characters are fully realized and fleshed out. So all of these culminate into these like little moments plus some big moments, which I thought were really like, they felt real and they felt raw and honest. But at the same time, this book is also pretty heartwarming. It is a romance after all. It does have a happily ever after. It has like a found family aspect to it if you're someone who likes that trope in books. Moving on to the negatives. So again, I'll be listing down 3 negatives of this book. The first one, and the most obvious one, I think, would be the length. I listened to this on audiobook, and the audiobook was 17.5 hours long. And I feel like any romance book, I just feel like it doesn't have to be 17 hours long, because you set up the characters, you set up some of the side characters, you set up the romance, and like max to max, I feel like romance books are like 10 to 12 hours long. But this one, so parts of this book felt really dragged out and repetitive, and I just think that sometimes the descriptions of emotions and feelings, and some of the conversations, I just feel like everything could have been cut down a little bit. Even though this book is very well structured and written, it still didn't need to be so long. And like I said, it could have really been a tighter book if it could have been cut down by like 100 or 200 even pages. My second negative would be, and this I think is really subjective to different people, but there are times when this book is kind of corny and cheesy, in fact a little too corny and cheesy at times. I know that different people have like different mileage where they can bear with or like reading different levels of corniness and cheesiness. But this book is a little preachy. It is a little like love yourself and live a happy life. I don't know, it's kind of like your live, love, laugh kind of book. Not exactly. I feel like reducing a book to those like 3 words would be very reductive, but there are definitely moments, especially towards the end of the book, when we are building up to like a climax and the happy ending. Things do feel very like easily resolved and a little, I just want to say, cheesy and corny. Third negative would be again like some of the smaller aspects of the book which don't really make up the entirety of the plot, but they're definitely present throughout the book. So for example, Michael Hosea, he definitely has his eye roll worthy moments, like the way he falls in love with Angel the first time he sees her because, oh, she's so beautiful and hot. And you know, it's like, fine, yeah, maybe like God sent him a message, but I felt like I wanted more development. You know, with my romances, I like when the characters slowly get to know each other and then fall in love, rather than like kind of just, you know, falling in love just like that. Then we have the way that Michael marries Angel, and she's basically unconscious, and she, you know, basically is in trouble, she is in danger. So he decides to, you know, save her, and the only option he has in that moment is to marry her, because, you know, men and women can't be together without, you know, being related back in those like historical time periods. So that's what he does, but he does kind of force her to stay with him and be his wife when that is not what she wants, that is not what she asked for. Then there's the whole element of prostitution. So while the book does have empathy for the sex workers, but I don't think this book really sees prostitution as a respectable, you know, source of income or occupation. And again, I feel like there might be different interpretations for that based on, like, you know, whoever read this book and however they chose to interpret the depiction of sex work, because, you know, I don't think that this book is really trying to talk about sex work. It is more about, you know, accepting yourself and forgiving yourself and finding love. Those are the themes of the book. So the book isn't really trying to like really talk about, you know, prostitution and sex work. So, you know, the prostitutes who, you know, work with Angel, they are all shown to be, you know, these like young women who have come under, you know, certain bad circumstances and had to make choices that they might not have made if they were in better circumstances. So again, you know, there are just like these smaller things in the book which I do feel like might annoy some readers, and they definitely grated on my nerves too. Like, you know, for almost the entirety of the whole book, Michael does not want to call Angel as her name Angel. He names her different things based on, you know, biblical names such as I don't even remember, I think Rebecca, and I am forgetting those names, but basically he does not want to call her Angel because to him she's just like his wife and a woman that he loves, but he fails to see that she has had this life before him that did not include him, and, you know, she wants him to acknowledge that, which he does eventually do. But, you know, I just feel like, again, different people might have like different opinions on this, but these are definitely some things that annoyed me a little bit, and I found that the book could have been improved if these elements weren't there, but that's just my opinion. One more thing I would like to mention before you know, moving into the movie review, this book does have a lot of trigger warnings, obviously, for rape, sexual assault, violence, death of a loved one, there's pedophilia, there's a lot going on. This is a dark book, and I know that I called it heartwarming and uplifting, but it definitely has a lot of dark things happening in it. So if you can't handle that, because some of these things are kind of depicted in a more graphic way, so, you know, be aware of that before going into the book. You know, maybe search all the trigger warnings properly. Going into the movie review, so, you know, if you're wondering how did I watch this movie, because it's not on any streaming platform, so you would have to go to the theater, but it's not in theaters in India. Well, the answer is, I'm not gonna tell you, but, you know, as for the movie, I really liked it. It mostly stays very faithful to the book. 2 hours long, so it's, you know, fairly a short movie for, you know, a book that has a lot happening in it and is a very long book. Some of the pacing of the movie is a little bit off because the first 1 to 1.5 hours feels like it's, you know, well paced, but in the last half an hour, things, you know, a lot of things happen in that half an hour, and it feels like the directors, producers, whoever was writing the script and, you know, directing the movie were like, we have to include everything that happens in the book somehow into the movie. So the last half an hour has a lot going on, and the pacing does feel a little off in that, but otherwise, you know, the movie I thought was, you know, really well made. The actors do a good job of, like, you know, being the characters and acting. Basically, I don't really know much about like acting and stuff, but, you know, I can tell that the actors did a good job of portraying these characters. Michael's character is more of a cinnamon roll in the movie, and he's a little more awkward and shy, whereas in the book it's not that he is like super arrogant or gruff, but in the book he does have like this sort of like condescending, righteous tone, which they definitely toned down in the movie, and I do think that was a good choice to be made because it shows that Michael is not always in the right. His savior complex is not always the best thing to have around. They even removed the part where, you know, Michael keeps calling Angel by different names and refuses to acknowledge her past. And I thought those were, you know, some small things that they removed that overall made the movie, I think, more digestible to, you know, present day audiences, because, you know, the book was released, I want to say like 25 years ago, and the movie is releasing now. So they definitely had to make changes to that. And one more thing I wanted to mention was this guy, this actor who plays the role of Duke in Redeeming Love. I feel like he always gets the role of the pedophile in every like movie and TV show. Even in Euphoria, he was like a very similar character. If you don't know, he's Cal Jacobs from Euphoria, who is like, you know, universally despised. And I just don't know, I just find it funny that he's like doing these roles, and like, I don't know, maybe it's just 2 roles, maybe I'm, you know, typecasting him. But yeah, just like an observation, nothing to do with the review, but yeah, that's it. So this is my sister, and she also read the book and watched the movie, and you know, I thought why not bring her on to this video, and maybe we could both discuss what we liked and did not like about the book and the movie. So, you know, what are your thoughts on the book?
Okay, so obviously it's like a lot focused on religion, and it could also sometimes, you know, you could agree or disagree with it, because like when religion says that, you know, doing certain things is wrong, but like some people would say like, you know, they don't do it like that. So I feel that Francine, there's in her book, there's not a lot of nuances to religion, as in, you know, you don't get to see like people misusing religion and people like using religion in a good way. It's just like religion, and especially Christianity, it's just good and people are using it for good, but you know, that always doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like, I do think that the religion wasn't really shown as much of a community thing. It was shown more of as like an individual thing, and I thought that was you know, interesting. And also like I want to say, since it was more of an like individual thing, that, you know, the individual can interpret the, you know, their faith and God as like however they want to. And I thought that was actually a part of the book I appreciated, because, you know, 1800s, like back then, I don't know if like a lot of people had that many rights, and religion definitely played a part into like, you know, causing that sort of discrimination and fear. So out of 5, how much would you rate this book?
I actually gave this book 5 stars. But I also think one of the reasons I feel that this book could be really inspiring and motivating, but also because of the way Christianity has been portrayed, as you said, that it's not like very rigid or it's not really the same. But another thing you know, really, it was really emphasized in this book was how, you know, people, they use Angel, like the men in the town, they're ready to use Angel, you know, for their pleasure, but they, you know, at the same time, they're not ready to, you know, give Angel any kind of respect or anything like that. So like, you know, you could see that double standard, like the man has his wife waiting for him at home, and he's spending the money he's earned on, you know, spending a night with Angel. So yeah, you kind of see that, and yeah, I felt that even that was a really good point.
So what do you think about Michael?
Okay, so first of all, I think Michael is very idealistic, because I think that, you know, at least like I'm thinking of a man in 1850, and he's like a humble farmer, and you know, to some extent I do feel that he was very idealistic, and I don't know if such people exist, but if he were to exist, you know, he is a very sweet, and he's very caring, he's very understanding, and when time comes, you know, he's ready to listen to Angel, you know, to understand her and to try to like, you know, be like, okay, fine, she has a past and I need to accept that, and accept her as my wife, you know. He doesn't hold her past against her, he doesn't look down upon her, and I think that was like a very good thing about him.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that he's not always the best at listening, but eventually he does, and eventually he does like grow and you know, see that there's more to Angel than just, you know, being his wife and being like this perfect hot woman basically that he fell in love with. Yeah. And yeah, I guess, what's one thing you didn't like about the book? Nothing?
No.
Yeah, so
I do think that in the book, Paul got this whole um, he had this whole part at the end when he goes, he meets Angel, he marries Miriam,
yeah, Miriam.
and all of that, and I just felt like Paul really never got any consequences of what he did with Angel.
Yeah.
Like, I think that they just let it happen, and I just felt like, okay, fine, this is going to be like a very monumental part, like, where everything's going to be questioned, and even Paul's going to have to like respond, but Paul's just like, like I just felt like that just fell flat. Nothing happened with that.
Yeah, I do think the way that Paul's character was handled is, I mean, this book is about like forgiveness and everything, and so even Paul gets his like redemption arc, I want to say, but I don't know, like it didn't sit well with me. But also, like, at the same time, I think you mentioned this before, that just because something happens in the book, like an event that we disagree with, doesn't mean it's like necessarily a bad book. So yeah, I just there are, like I said, there are these like small moments in this book which are just like different to my beliefs, or things that don't sit well with me. But overall, like, it was still a good book, I want to say. It was still like I think I was definitely surprised by the level of like acceptance and nuance and complexity of a book that was published in like 1997. I don't know if you find that a lot in some of those like older books.
Yeah, I do think that sometimes when you pick up books that were written that far back, maybe you do find the whole a complete different narrative, because the people who were reading it were different. But I wouldn't say I was surprised. But yeah, I think I really liked the book.
So what about the movie?
So I think the movie was like what, 1 hour, 2 hours long?
Yeah, 2 hours long,
give or take. I do think when I look, like, usually when we look at movies, it's like 1 hour, 1.5 hours long. And so I was like, oh my god, this movie is 2 hours long.
I mean, especially for like a romance.
Yeah, and so religiously I'm not going to comment on it, because I don't know anything
I mean,
about
you kind of
Christian.
already did. It's fine, continue.
No, but I don't know much about Christianity, but I do feel that, I think I was about like 45-50 minutes into the movie. Until then, it was really slow. You get to see Angel's backstory, and you get to see, I think, you basically, it was really slow till like maybe half the movie, and I was like, this is just sort of like the beginning of the book. Like, there's so much more story to cover, and they skipped on, like, if you see the movie, they skipped out on like such huge chunks of the book. They did not elaborate on so many things, and yeah, I just felt like the last part was maybe a little rushed.
Yeah, I mean, the last part was rushed, and also like in the book you kind of get to see the characters' like inner thoughts, which you can't really have in the movie. So I do think some of that gets taken away. Fuck this train. Fuck that mobile. So yeah, that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you thought of the movie and the book, if you have watched or read any of the two, and if you want to pick it up after watching my review and my sister's review. Actually, my sister does have a blog where she reviews this book, and she does review like a lot of romance over there. So if you want to check that out, I will leave the link in the description, and follow her Instagram. She does have a, I want to say, is it like public? Yeah, she does have a public dance account. So if you would like to do that, surely go do that. And that is it. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you wish to do so. And that is it. Goodbye.
Bye.